Onde o cara acorda e sem colocar a mão em nada, pede para ligar. Alguém viu esse vídeo? Pede para ligar a lareira, pede para apagar o fogo, pede o banho, pergunta da reunião. Ele vai ao dentista, toma uma anestesia geral e quando ele chega na porta da casa dele, fica pedindo para abrir a porta, ele está com a boca inchada, a voz está distorcida, a porta não abre, o problema é que está chovendo e ele está se molhando. Alguém viu esse vídeo aqui essa semana? Dê uma olhada aí, é bem divertido. Mas é um assunto super relevante. E para falar desse assunto, eu quero convidar ao palco o Steve Whitman, da Whitman. Steve, come to share it with us.
Bom dia! I'm glad we made before 12 o'clock because I don't know how to say good afternoon and I was so worried that I was going to get it wrong. So I think we just barely made the good morning. So thanks for having me. Today I'm charged with the challenge of helping you plan for VoiceSearch. So for those people who haven't really played with voice yet, what we're talking about is you talking into your phone, talking into a Google Assistant, talking to Cortana, talking to Alexa, right? The Echo. So this is what we're talking about when it comes to search and how you're going to plan your website and your business to be able to be ready as this technology comes down here to Brazil. How many people here actually have a Google Home? 2, 3, 4. Great. That's going to change. By next year, you're going to have a lot more of those devices in your house. And you're going to be talking to other devices like your refrigerator, like your car. My cousin has a refrigerator that has this Internet of Things going on already, and he's already using voice to interact with devices like his refrigerator. It's insane. So again, today's more of a readiness session, get you ready for voice. I'm going to go through a little bit of what you can do to plan for it, and then I'm going to give you 5 actionables that you can take home to start working on today. So search, as we know it today, is predominantly on desktop and mobile, but it is evolving into what's going to become a voice-generated ecosystem. And what we know, thanks to our friends at Smart Insights, when we look at what shows up when you perform a search, nearly 55% of the results have this little knowledge panel on the side. You can see this in the background over here with the theme park in California called Six Flags. You can actually see the knowledge panel and the information that's later going to be spoken to you on your Google Voice or your Amazon Alexa. We also know that map packs appear in 27% of results, and that ads appear in 62% of results above the fold. Almost 80% if you look at the entire page above and below the fold. So we're learning a lot about what's showing up in the search results, and Google's giving us these subtle hints of what's to come because they don't want to panic webmasters, they don't want to panic businesses, but they want to prepare us for what's to come. We also know that mobile now is taking up for 60% of all searches. And I know you've heard this statistic over and over and over again, and that you probably question a lot of the different studies like ComScore and some of the other third parties that go out and kind of create their own studies. Ours isn't actually based on studies. Ours is based on our own data. When we look at our clients in the storage industry, for example, we know that 57% of their users are coming from mobile devices. That's really helpful information because not just because it helps us design better web pages, but it helps us plan for what's coming. Restaurant, 75% of all the searches that happen, of all the traffic that comes to this particular restaurant franchise, which you can see they just get a few sessions a month, right? Not a lot. 75% are on mobile devices. And then retail. This particular retail site, we found 58% were on mobile. So if you're not convinced by some of the third-party studies, the ComScores and so forth, be convinced by the actual data. Which means we need to start planning for mobile before we start planning for voice. Otherwise, you're going to pull out your phone, you're going to perform a search, that search is going to result in Google giving you some specific pages to go to. You'll go to those pages, and if they're not optimized for the user, then you're going to lose them. And if you lose them, they're going to go back to Google, they're going to click another result, and you're going to basically be demoted over time. So here's some things that Google has given us, that they've shared with us that we know are going to be important as we start really optimizing our websites. This was back in March of 2018, where they said, hey, we're going to start rolling out this mobile first indexing thing, which doesn't necessarily affect your keyword rankings, but it does affect the way that Google's now crawling and how they're perceiving the future of what's going to happen in search. And then in July, they actually started rolling this out. We started seeing emails coming in from Search Console. So Google's giving us these hints that, hey, mobile is going to become important because we know that there's different ways that people are interacting. So here's some tools that we use to do things to improve our mobile, like page speed. Pingdom, web page tests, Google developer tools. Throughout this presentation, you're going to see a lot of these little bullets because I want to make sure that you have the tools and the steps and the tips and the examples to take home with you. They've also told us not to use separate URLs. They want to pull information from one source, one URL. So in thinking about mobile, if you haven't already started consolidating your URLs into a responsive design, now's the time to do that. The other thing I noticed when just for fun, I used the Google Assistant and I asked to register for the conference today. And I found the site, which was fantastic. I found the form to register, but what I didn't find is when I was registering, some of the fields didn't have the right attribute on them to pull up, say, the dial pad during the number field. Instead, I had to use this top keyboard to be able to actually put in my phone number because the person who designed the form didn't think about mobile users enough. They did think about them, but not enough. If you use all of these different attributes that Google provides, and the URLs down here, I'll make sure you all have a copy of the presentation. Now you're providing a better mobile experience. So when I do perform a voice search, and I do have to finish my transaction on the website, I'll see a dial pad and be able to click and convert much faster than having to switch over to the number pad on my normal keyboard. There's also these autocomplete fields. These autocomplete fields allow the user to simply click and autocomplete when they go into a form, such as name, an email, address, phone number, credit cards, usernames and passwords. These are all autocomplete fields. Again, getting us to a point where in the near future, we're completely hands-free during our search session. We start with a search, we interact with a page, we complete a transaction, hopefully without ever having to touch our phone. But the segue, the middle point, is being able to allow the user who does have to be on their phone to simply click those fields, have an autofill suggestion, click enter, and move on without having to actually type anything on your keyboard. Google's also participated in a project called the AMP project to enable us to provide faster results. And these aren't just hints, right? These are sort of, what's the word I want to use? These are directives. These are them saying, hey, we really want you to focus on page speed, and we're going to enable you to do that with tools that we're launching. And this is the extra legwork. So what they'll do is if you have, say, a WordPress website, they'll install a plugin for AMP, and they'll say, look, you're mobile friendly. You passed the mobile test. Wow, but our conversions went down. And our ranking, Google's whole algorithm is based on something they call PageRank, right? PageRank is how Google crawls through your website from other websites that hopefully are as equal in quality as yours, if not more. We also know that we need to be the most helpful, not just the most helpful on the web page, but the most helpful in the search engine results, so that when there's 10 listings for a user to choose, you'll want them to choose you. And how do you get them to choose you more often? You have a better title, a better description. Maybe you put some markup on your page to give rich results, stars and ratings, and how many particular products you have on this page. Providing better results in Google is the first place to start as we think about becoming more helpful. So the key areas of focus have been technical SEO, contextual SEO, and of course, off-page visibility, making sure that we're getting found and getting linked to. This was the focus of yesterday. And this is still paramount to your SEO strategy. It's still the foundation of what you need to do for SEO, but our focus needs to shift now. We need to evolve. Fast forward to today, our areas of focus are going to be solving for user intent, which I believe if you were here yesterday on the same stage, they talked about user intent. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a few minutes. Solving for hands-free, which is why we're here today, planning ahead for voice. Solving for attribution, not just first click and last click, but where do they go on the internet? How do they interact? What are their audiences? Dennis and Logan talked about this quite a bit in a session earlier today. And then preventing penalties. So few businesses pay attention to what's going on when it comes to penalties. Are your competitors building links to your website that could harm your rankings? Right? Are you doing something manipulative through an agency you hired without knowing it? Paying attention to penalties could definitely save you the grief of trying to troubleshoot what's going on. So here's goal number 1. If you're taking any notes, this is probably where you should start. Offer voice search on your own website. How many people here have the microphone icon on the search box on their website? 1, 2, 3, 4. A few people. That's fantastic. You're early adopters to what's going on. It's actually very simple to apply some code for the voice recognition API. It's very simple to do this. And now you can have that little icon and tell users, hey, just click in this little box. I'll use voice recognition to try to find what you're looking for on my website. Seems really simple, but most businesses are really kind of obsessing over some of the other things we're going to talk about. But this one just seems so basic, so simple. Number 2, of course, is solving for the user intents, and not just for voice, but because we're trying to solve the problems our users are having and segmenting our content. So often a business owner will say, I really want to rank for this broad search term, or what we call a short tail search term. So often they'll say that, not realizing that that particular query may be something where someone's looking for information and not to buy a product. And then they'll order an article or a sales page. The user will get to the page and get confused because they don't understand what the content's actually trying to tell them. So content is how we address this. And I'll show you a little bit about our kind of philosophy on how we can solve for user intent. The buyer journey is absolutely critical to any SEO strategy. So often, business owners and webmasters will have one person who writes content. That person is responsible for writing long-form, helpful, casual content, as well as consideration content, say maybe a category on a website, and they're responsible for writing some of the sales content. That's your purchase pages. That's your page where somebody's actually going to become a customer. Google started to hint about this 3 years ago, shoving these micro moments down our throat. On mobile user behavior studies, they found that most people are really interested in I want to know, I want to go, I want to do, I want to buy. For voice, we're going to talk about the I want to know, which leads us to goal number 3, earning position 0. And this is important because we've been told that nearly 50% of all searches are going to be voice by 2020, well, at least in the States. Down here, it might take a few months more, but position 0. And what is position 0? Position 0 is this beautiful little featured answer box. Are you familiar with these? Where you perform a search and above the organic results, you see this little box with a fast answer there? Everybody familiar with that? So tools that we use to be able to find some of the keywords to use include Storybase, SERPstat. Answer the Public will give you some good hints as well, just no data. And this is by far the fastest way that you can start seeing results from voice is by going through this whole exercise of getting this awareness level content to your site. Putting voice on your site is helpful and it will make a difference. You know, being able to address user intent will absolutely be helpful and prevent bounce backs and conversion. But the fastest way to get results is to start with this. You can build your entire content marketing strategy for the year in about a day if you do this. So I used Storybase for this example. I put in the word clean and the word shoes, and it gave me a ton of questions that people ask and some data, not necessarily specifically for the number, but for the trend, meaning more people are searching for how to clean suede shoes than how to stretch shoes. So knowing this, I can create some amazing content around this topic, solve the best answer, include visuals, include video, include the steps, and hopefully I'll start seeing some traffic come in. So if you're really organized, one of the things you'll do, again, is you'll take all that data, you'll organize it into topics, maybe in tabs in Excel, you'll cluster them into groups, semantic groups based on what the user intent is, and you'll create this perfect, simple calendar. I have this little pot of gold down here on the bottom that is from 2010, and it still holds true today with some themes and some ways that you can look at your content marketing strategy and build some campaigns and organize your actual content marketing approach if you want to check that out. So here's an example, again, where we learned what was causing these featured answers. And there's a lot of different opinions, there's a lot of different tests, a lot of different studies, but I'm going to show you how easy it is. And by the way, if you have the opportunity when you create content, put some sort of a way to let people copy it and put it on their own website. That makes it super easy, the same way we used to put our share buttons for social. So this diagram is something I just kind of threw together last minute to give you some ideas on ways that you can share your featured answer. By the way, from our study, I didn't put it on the slide, but our study showed about 320 characters or so. If you want to create a short answer at the beginning of your content, the summary answer, the thing that you want to show up in Google search results, the thing you want Google Home and other assistant technologies to repeat back to you after you perform a search, about 320 characters. So keep that short answer about 320 characters short. And when you do, start working with these different syndication points, get that content, that short answer, into the description of maybe the media sharing sites, the video that you have that's on that page, put that on YouTube, put your short answer in the description. The images, when you're sharing those images and other people are, enable them to be able to also put their short answer into the description area. So as Google's crawling the web and they're finding all of those different instances, it'll play a role in helping you to get that short answer. So here's kind of the steps we took to show how we figured out curation was such an important way to get this short answer. So we copied a string of text. We found 2,360 other websites, web pages, sharing this particular recipe. You can do this too if you say, hey, I want to rank for this particular keyword, but this other website has the featured answer box. Do this little exercise, copy it into quotes and see exactly who's sharing their content. Maybe reach out to those sites that are sharing that content and say, I've got something you might find a little bit more helpful or more intuitive to your users. It's a great way to immediately be able to find those opportunities. And to be fair, there was some structured data use on this example, but not most. Most websites really haven't adopted structured markup yet. So in this one, when we looked at the curation side, we did identify that was the primary reason this particular paragraph was in the search results, but they also used a little bit of markup from schema.org. We found that 220 websites were linking, but with 2,300 instances of that curation. So I'm less interested now in the links, and I'm more interested in getting my content, my short answer, my checklist, more interested in getting that shared. So here's an interesting statistic that we found. And this was a few months back. We found that the number of people that were using the Hey Googles had doubled. And what was interesting about this was that it went away. The data disappeared on OK Google metrics. Fortunately, we dove in at the right time and we were able to capture it, but for some reason, Google doesn't want us to see this anymore. I don't know why. So you can play with Google Trends and you can play with your own data and you can start to build assumptions. We were able to find, before the information went away, some specific ways people search, which helps us, again, in thinking about how we want to write our content. In this case, Google find restaurants near me, OK Google find me a restaurant, just helps us to understand user behavior a little bit. Now that that data is gone, we can still see some clues because we know people on desktop aren't using the word find. We know that they're using this on their voice searches. So there's still some clues available for you to really understand how your users are searching and to write copy that basically solves the best answer. We also saw conversations happening that started with a search. And I think at the Google I/O this year, they actually showed an example of somebody who actually booked a hair appointment through the new assistant, the latest update they're supposed to be rolling out. So that was really exciting to see that type of activities happening where it never even touched the website. The user never got to the website. It all happened through the interaction that they had with voice and voice assistant. We also need to start thinking about AR and VR. If you're not thinking about virtual reality and AR and all this stuff that's coming, then the competitor's going to flank you and you're going to lose out. Somebody who's using a VR headset, for example, still tied to their mobile on some of the devices they have today. In other cases, they're using proprietary equipment. That proprietary equipment is now going to also start including ways that you can use search without having to pull up your headset and completely change your environment to be on a desktop or on a phone. And the Oasis is coming. If you haven't seen Ready Player One yet, this kid basically went into this virtual world and he was interacting with others and he was shopping and he was doing things that he's only able to do online through this virtual world. So if you start thinking about VR, you start thinking about voice and how people are interacting with you, when this new oasis, becomes a prominent thing and everyone's going home and getting online, you'll be the business that has the digital store and introduces your brand so that when they go offline, they'll want to go into your store. So goal number 4 is going to be by claiming your business. And by the way, this is the easiest thing you can do. You can do it today after this session while you're having lunch. It's that easy, it's that quick. We did it in less than 5 minutes the other day just for fun, just to explore it. Here's the URL to go to. You'll have, take a picture if you want, you'll have these slides later. See if this little GIF works. So here you go. Adding a project, put in your business name, ABC podcast or whatever. In our case, we put in, Wiedemann Consulting, so that when somebody goes to voice, they can ask Google, or we're going to talk about Alexa here in a minute as well. They can say, okay, Google, talk to Wiedemann Consulting. And now you're in the Wiedemann Consulting environment, and you can interact, and you can do things with our business that you wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't taken the few minutes to claim our business. Next is you're going to create actions. In Alexa, you're going to create skills, right? These actions are things such as book an appointment online, purchase a product, get information about the business. For Disney, it might be how much is an annual pass. You can interact with a business now using information that's stored in Google Assistant's database without the user ever even going to your website. And again, this isn't to make you scared that your website's not going to matter. It's just to get you ready and thinking about what could be coming over the next several years. Other brands have already been experimenting with some of these scripts, or these skills, and some of these actions. Tide, for example, you can ask Tide how to clean a stain. You can ask Toyota to start your car using your Amazon Alexa. You can ask Alexa to call you an Uber. Right? All of these new ways that you can interact with businesses, because the businesses took a few minutes to create some very simple, easy skills within these different tool sets. So here's some ideas for inspiration. Number 1, if you're in e-commerce, give them the ability to purchase and buy online. I know in Amazon it's easy, but you buy through Amazon. Google now has implemented another service similar to that using, I think they call it Google Express. You can actually purchase using your Google Wallet. You have to apply to be in their program to be able to do this, but on Google Home now, you have the ability to sell without the user ever even going to your website. You can also get them to book an appointment or to call you, just like that Google I/O example of somebody booking a haircut without ever actually talking to the person at the barbershop. And lastly, information about your business. Some other ideas we found are on this URL at the droidsondroids.com. We found some really fun, interesting ways that you can start experimenting and testing with voice. Okay, audience, thanks for listening. That's my presentation. So now we'll open up for questions. Any questions?
Pergunta ali. Temos 2 perguntas aqui.
I want to ask, how do you actually play with that in today's world? Because I don't think actually we're really prepared for that. I own a Google Home, and I don't see that coming, that early, like with my kids and all asking for music and things like that. I don't really see that coming. That early. I have asked you before about GDPR, and I would like to know, how do you see this future and how much time?
Sure. In the States, we're already adopting it quickly. It's so rapid, like I mentioned, in all the computer stores, they have just tons of booths and devices. People are using their wearables now as well to perform searches. So the adoption is really high at the moment. The GDPR, I know there's a lot of issues with privacy. I don't know if anyone's ever talked to somebody about a topic and then gone to Facebook and seen an ad show up. And you're like, wait a minute, I didn't search for this. How did they know? So yeah, there's a lot of things that I think we don't know yet, and there's going to be a lot of litigation that's going to happen. But to me, it's a sandbox. It's a playground for us to start exploring, because regardless, you can see the future. You know that technology is going to evolve and that we're going to be talking to all of our devices through the Internet of Things. It's a good question.
It was a nice presentation. And I would like to know more about Google AMP technology. And if you could say a little bit more, because I'm an Android user, and I checked that some websites, they use the AMP technology and sometimes they don't, depending on Google Chrome. I would like to know more about this criteria, if it's about the slow connection or something. In some news websites, it's more common to happen in news websites, mainly because in Brazil they are slow and they have a lot of banners, and I think maybe this is one of the criteria, but I would like to know more about it, because I'm not a digital marketer, I'm a developer, and this is really important to get the websites and to get more mobile, like you said, and not to be mobile friendly, and to be mobile first, like Google's motto and everything.
Sure. No, that's a great question. The ampproject.org has a ton of documentation to help you through it. When we asked our developers to start experimenting with it, 4 hours later they came back with an AMP page and they said, you know what, this was a lot easier than we thought it was going to be, but the design doesn't look that great. We're going to have to redesign the page to make it work a little bit better. So the design aspect of it's almost like creating a whole new website. It feels like it because the experience is much faster, the functionality is a little bit more limited. So it is something that you're going to want to test. I think eBay rolled out some 2 million URLs on AMP, and they were successful with it. So I know the feedback is editorial is where you use AMP, and the reality is you can use it across any page, not just your blog, not just articles. You can actually use AMP on selling pages and categories. So I would explore ampproject.org, use their testing tools, use their documentation on how to do it. I'm not a super programmer tech geek, but I looked at it and I figured I could probably learn it in about a day or two. It's very simple. Awesome. Thank you.
A gente tem tempo para mais uma pergunta. Alguém? No? No? Stevie, I'd like to thank you for your time and your knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.
I'll watch the steps on the way out.
Okay. Please take care.